Hi, I'm Nikki from Teaching Autism, and welcome to the Autism and Special Education Community Podcast. Are you an autism or special education professional? Are you a teacher or therapist looking for support and new ideas? You may even be a parent, family member, or carer. This podcast is perfect to help you find out more information, support, and get some of your questions answered. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Teaching Autism and Special Education Community Podcast. Today I am so excited to bring on Caroline, who works for Forbrain. Recently I was contacted by Forbrain to ask if I would be interested in trying out one of their headsets. So I checked out their website, I found out some about their information, and I was blown away. This headset, it sounded too good to be true, but the reviews spoke for themselves. And this headset, it sounded amazing. So of course, I jumped at the opportunity to try it out. The headset is comprised of a high quality microphone, bone conduction transducers, and a dynamic filter. Not only does it come with instructions for how to use it, but suggestions and exercises that you can do as well. And let's face it, life is crazy. We all have huge to-do lists and we're trying to do all the things in a short space of time. So when something comes that is easy to use with visual instructions and it saves me time, I know it's going to work great for me and my students. So what exactly is Forbrain? Well, Forbrain improves the perception of the voice and it works on all aspects of the audio-vocal loop, and it gives the nervous system a solid sensory workout. Your voice is processed by an alternating filter and it's transmitted through bone conduction. But rather than me tell you all about Forbrain, I have Caroline, who's agreed to come on the podcast today and talk to you more about this fantastic headset and tell you about the benefits that it can have for you, your students, your children, and anyone in the world really. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome on Caroline. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast today. So thank you very much for trusting me to take part in Forbrain. It has been amazing to try it out, and the children I've tried it with have loved it. So I'm really excited to have you on today to sort of tell my audience more about Forbrain and just to find out if it's something that they would be interested in as well.
Cool. Thanks a lot for having me.
You're welcome. So first off, would you be able to tell us a little bit about what Forbrain is and your sort of role with the company?
Sure. So Forbrain is a bone conduction headset that's equipped with a microphone and a patented dynamic filter. The idea is that it creates an enhanced auditory feedback loop to improve auditory and sensory processing. So basically, when you put the headphones on and you start speaking into the mic, you'll get instantaneous high-quality feedback of your own voice via bone conduction. And your voice will also be slightly modulated, slightly enriched by the dynamic filter also. So overall, the device improves speech, attention, and memory. And to answer the question about myself, I've been in the company for over a year now. I'm based out of Hong Kong, and I'm working mostly on sales and operations.
That is fabulous. Thank you. And I can especially vouch for this with using this with my children and using it on myself, that when you put the headset on, it's crazy to hear how different your voice sort of sounds coming back to you. And I know my children have really enjoyed it, the smile on their faces as they hear their voice coming back to them. So it has been really interesting. So I know you mentioned bone conduction. Now, I have a lot of listeners who may not necessarily understand much about bone conduction. Could you just sort of give us a little bit of information about that?
Yeah, sure. So bone conduction is actually the technology that allows you to hear through the vibration of the bones rather than through your ears. So basically, when you use bone conduction, sound is transmitted directly to the inner ear without going through the tympanum, whereas air conduction is when you actually listen through your ears and it goes through the tympanum and then to the inner ear. So why we're using bone conduction, it actually has several advantages. The first one is that it's 10 times faster than air conduction. It's of much higher quality, and it's also the most natural way to hear our own voice. So usually we don't like, for example, listening to recordings of our own voice. We're always very, disappointed with the way we sound, or we find it's high-pitched. That's because we usually listen to our own voice through bone conduction, through the vibrations of the bones of our body. And when we listen to a recording, it's air conduction, and it's always very confusing. So that's what bone conduction is.
That is a great sort of information that you've provided there. And I know definitely when I listen back to the way that I sound through recordings, I definitely understand what you were getting at there. And I know a lot of people will.
I think it's universal. But yes.
I think everyone sort of can, go along with that. But definitely when I had the headset on, my voice sounded totally different. It was amazing. And when I first read about it, you get sort of skeptical with these things, but wow, I was really blown away with just the difference that I heard just wearing the headset. And it's such a small headset and you don't really feel that you've got it on you. So it's not distracting. It didn't cause any issues for my children. So all of that information and technology in one small headset, it's amazing what you guys have done with it.
Thanks. I'm glad you like it. But it's true that the headset is particularly light. So yeah, for children who want to walk around and not feel, and also it's wireless, which is good because some children can hate the feeling of being attached to something. So yeah, that's why we designed it that way.
Definitely. The wireless, that is fantastic. It just makes it more portable as well. And I know that a lot of my followers, they work in schools. I have teachers, I have speech therapists, any sort of education professional. And being able to transport that from room to room and even school to school is so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So a lot of technology has gone into this headset, and I know my audience are all about, what are the statistics, what are the research? So could you give us a little bit of information about what research has gone into Forbrain?
Yeah, of course. So actually, the founders of Forbrain are the owners of the Tomatis method. So I'll just give a brief history, but the Tomatis method is a neurosensory stimulation technique that was created by Alfred Tomatis, who's a French ENT doctor. This method is now used in several thousands of therapeutic institutes and language centers around the world, and it's over 60 years old. And so because the founders of Forbrain are the owners of this method, a lot of the knowledge, science, technology from the Tomatis method has gone into Forbrain. And a lot of research backs the efficiency of the Tomatis method. So that's the history of the product itself. Since then, we've been selling the product for the past 5 years now. So there have actually been scientific studies conducted directly on Forbrain itself. All of them are listed on our website, but basically we've had different scientists evaluating different aspects. What you can note is how it can improve the quality of speech, how it can help with reading, how it helps with cognitive functions, how it helps with dyslexia. So there's been quite a lot of research on the product itself.
Definitely. I think so much time and energy has been put into it as well. You can see that this has been something that's been really well thought out, and they've thought of nearly every angle. And it's interesting that you've covered, that it helps for dyslexia, helps for language. So this can be used by a huge variety of different people. So just who would you recommend could use Forbrain?
So Forbrain is actually completely universal. It can be used by anyone as early as 3 years old. Because there's no content in the microphone, the only thing you need is to use your own voice. So anyone from any country speaking any language can be using Forbrain. We do have also a large network of therapists and educators using Forbrain with kids who have special needs. We've seen from the feedback that we've heard that it helps a lot with different kind of difficulties that can be auditory processing disorder, dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, certain autism spectrum disorders, Down syndrome. So it can definitely help. Yeah, it can definitely help these children, but overall it helps anyone who's trying to improve and work on their speech, attention, or memory.
Definitely. And that is fantastic. I know when I've been using the headset here to try it out, I was amazed that the size seems to be universal as well, where it fit my head, which obviously as an adult is a lot larger than some of my children at 3, 4, 5 years of age, but it fit them comfortably as well.
Yeah, because you put the hoop behind the neck and it's bone conduction, so it goes in front of the ears, the size is less of an issue, definitely. So,
it's been brilliant.
There's just one size of the product.
And I know that you recommend a lot of exercises that come with it in the leaflet that comes in the arrival pack as well. And I know that personally, I've been using it with my autistic students. So I've had that sort of experience there and obviously with myself. But I know the exercises that you provided, this would allow parents at home as well to use this device with their children without sort of feeling the pressures of not knowing how to use it, what to do with it. And it will allow speech therapists to be able to put it straight into practice. It may even be teachers in classrooms who don't have training and may feel out of depth, but with the exercises you provide, it gives them that sort of base to start to use this with their students and children.
Yeah, that's exactly the goal. Yeah. Yeah, there's the leaflet, as you mentioned, that's within the product. We also have therapists who've been kind enough to share with us their recommended exercises. So that's another leaflet that's available on the website. And then anyway, if anyone has any questions or needs advice, we also have a team to help. So
And I will link all those things in the show notes as well, so people can come direct to you. And also, I know on Instagram, you share a lot of posts there where people are trying this out, speech therapists, and people can see this in action then and see how people are using this and read people's testimonials as well. Because I think sometimes when you can see and hear how much this device is helping children and adults all around the world as well, that gives you that little bit extra comfort to want to try something new.
Yeah. Definitely. Our Instagram page is quite new, but we have a lot of testimonials on Facebook and our website directly.
And I'll link all those in the show notes as well. So following on now, I know all those exercises, all those wonderful ways that you can use Forbrain. How often would you recommend that Forbrain should be used?
Forbrain is actually a training in itself. I mean, the idea is to train the brain to better process sensory information. So like any training, we recommend practicing regularly. The training sessions, we recommend 10 to 20 minutes per day, depending on the person who's using it. So if it's a child, depending on his sensitivity, whether he likes wearing the headphones or not, and the kinds of issues he may or may not be facing. And we recommend training sessions train on a regular basis between 6 to 10 weeks. The first results are usually immediate, but if you want to properly train the brain and observe long-term results, we believe that the right protocol would be 6 to 10 weeks and 10 to 20 minutes per day.
That is brilliant. And 10 to 20 minutes a day, that may sound a lot to some people, but once you get into routine, it's actually surprising how easy it is to fit 10 to 20 minutes a day into your daily work routine. And like I say, once you have that routine set up, those 10 to 20 minutes, they're going to fly by, and those 6 to 8 weeks will pass really quickly to start seeing even long-term results.
Yeah. Plus, it doesn't have to be necessarily a working session while you're wearing Forbrain. I mean, it can be just reading out loud, dialoguing with your child if he's the one wearing them, singing. So it doesn't have to be a tedious effort wearing Forbrain. It can also be part of a relaxing or fun activity.
Definitely. I know one of my children, when he first started using it, and he was finding it so funny. He loved hearing his own voice back to him. He thought it was the best thing that we've probably had for years. He was hysterical with it. And he just took himself to the book corner, and he can't fully read. He has learned to sort of remember what's in a story, and he will recite this. But he took himself to the book corner and he sort of read these books from memory, and it was just funny to see his expression as he heard himself saying things in different voices and different volumes that he's picked up from staff. So like you say, it wasn't even a work session. It was something that he took himself off to do, but he enjoyed the headset, he enjoyed the feedback he was getting from it. So that can even just be, a sort of choice activity for teachers to do in the classroom as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's great to hear. We do have a lot of feedback of families or therapists who say that the children also feel that they're kind of like rock stars when wearing the headphones. So that could be another advantage.
Definitely. And I know a lot of people, especially in my field, we do a lot of music, a lot of singing. And one of the exercises on the leaflets, and like you mentioned earlier, was singing songs. And it was wonderful to hear the feedback. I would encourage anyone who wants to try this to try it on themselves as well. Like you said, the size is universal. And I think to be able to experience it yourself as well, just to see the feedback that you get and the way that your children would be using it, is the best way to go.
Yeah, definitely. Also, for children who are a bit less curious about it or less willing to try it on, seeing first an adult wearing it can also encourage them.
Definitely. We always try to lead by example, especially, as teachers. So I think by us being more willing to try it out as well, that will help. And even at home, and I have a lot of homeschooling families who follow us, by them being able to use it as well. And it's something that they can use with all their children at home, not necessarily just their autistic children. It can be used by any child. So it's great to involve the whole family as well.
Exactly.
So I know in our field, especially when products come out and technical information is used, like bone conduction, people do start to worry. And I just wanted you to sort of provide information about Forbrain and how safe it is to use.
Sure. Honestly, it's completely safe. Again, the only limitation would be to not have children under 3 years old wear it. And not wearing it for several hours in a row, because it's still brain stimulation. You can feel tired or simply overstimulated. And if it's hypersensitive children, then it might be just too much. So that's the only limitation. Also, we don't recommend using it for people with either epilepsy or Parkinson's disease without the advice of a specialist, because these are very complex issues. And Forbrain is, again, stimulation. It's much better to be accompanied by a specialist if there are people with these kind of issues. But as I mentioned previously, we've been selling the product for 5 years now. There's research behind it, scientific studies, and we've had a lot of different feedback and testimonials, and it's completely safe. We've never had any reports of any issues with it.
No, and that's great advice. I know that will be comforting to a lot of my audience as well. So what would you say are your top 5 benefits to tell my audience what the main benefits of using Forbrain are?
First, I think speech is kind of the most obvious one and the most immediate, because as soon as you wear the headphones, you get very clear, instantaneous feedback of your own voice, which instantaneously makes you focus more on how you pronounce, on your fluency, on your tone of voice, which usually becomes more clear and more distinct. So speech is definitely one. Concentration and focus. Again, using bone conduction, because it's heightened, the sound of your voice is heightened. It's the most natural way to hear yourself. Usually people can focus more easily. And also the dynamic filter, so the little box that's on the side of the headphones, it highlights the high frequencies in the voice, and it creates sound contrast that will surprise the brain. And because the brain is constantly surprised, it's in a state of alert. And it's actually more focused. Concentration and focus, is definitely another one. Actually, reading and writing, in the sense that getting greater clarity of sound reception and more efficient processing then improves comprehension of whatever you're reading. And then I'd say overall, getting better focus, more clarity, less distractions, and getting used to the sound of your own voice overall just improves confidence, self-confidence, self-esteem, motivation. So I would say these are the main aspects.
Definitely. And I would agree with all of those. And I really think that confidence can be a huge issue, especially with a lot of the children that I work with and the way that they pronounce words. And me having the headset on myself, I have a strong Welsh accent. And sometimes I don't realize the way that I pronounce words until I hear them back on a recording. But when I had that headset on and I was pronouncing words, I could hear more clearly what maybe words have that more Welsh accent and what I need to work on. And I think that's important for our children as well.
Yeah, I'm the same with my French accent. So yeah, it helps.
I feel the pain. Welsh accents are no fun.
But yeah. Basically, all of these are consequences of more efficient integration of sound, better auditory and sensory processing. And all the benefits I listed previously are consequences of better auditory processing.
Definitely. And I can see that will be a benefit to a huge variety of people actually in a lot of different fields, and not just my field, like you say, people all over the world in all different aspects of life are using this.
Yeah, completely. I mean, as I mentioned, we do have a lot of specialists using it with children who have special needs, but it can be useful we have singers using it to hear how well, to get very good feedback of their own voice and whether they're in tune or not. It can be myself preparing an important presentation for the next day. Definitely a lot of different applications.
Those are amazing suggestions as well for how else to use it. Now, I know one of the things that it says in the leaflet is that Forbrain can help to improve memory. Now, I struggle personally with my memory through just different sleep things that I have going on, but I know that my children as well find it really hard to sort of retain what they're learning. So could you just provide some maybe background information on how Forbrain does help to improve memory?
Yeah, Forbrain actually helps with different kinds of memory. First, it can help with verbal or short-term memory in the sense that when you speak or you read aloud using Forbrain, your own voice will activate auditory pathways in your brain that enable you to access the memory more easily. So it can help with the type of memory, so verbal memory, which is the one that helps you process information very quickly and making you able to understand what you're reading or having a conversation. But then Forbrain also helps with memory in the sense that, so again, it uses bone conduction, so most natural way to hear yourself, which helps to better memorize the message very simply. And again, with this dynamic filter that creates sound contrast to keep the brain more focused, so more ready to retain a message.
Those are all great pieces of information. And I know personally it did really help me. Obviously, I suffer with sleep disorders. And definitely for me, trying to retain verbal information, I have to try and make notes because even small bits of information, if I haven't had the best few weeks of sleep, I find it really hard to process that information and then retain it. And wearing the headset, like you said, it really helped me to concentrate more on what I was saying. And then that helped me to think about what I was saying and then retain that information as well.
That's exactly the goal.
It was fabulous. And I know, a lot of my children, one of their biggest struggles is retaining that information because they may have short attention spans. Some of my children are very young. They come in at 3, 4, 5 years of age, and they may not necessarily have ever been in a work environment before. So trying to concentrate and sort of process what they're learning, concentrate on that session and retain all that information. That's a lot of things that they're trying to multitask with. But I know that the headset, it will really help them to concentrate more and focus on what they're doing. And the amount of enjoyment that they've had listening to themselves, I know that will help them to process more because they're listening to themselves rather than listening to me saying, come on, what did that say, repeat that. They can do it themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And what you're mentioning just made me think of something else. The other advantage of Forbrain is that because it uses bone conduction, so the transducers are in front of the ears are still unblocked, which means that the child can still dialogue with someone else. So if as a teacher, as a parent, if you want your child to memorize something or still make him do a specific exercise, he'll memorize it better because he'll be wearing the headphones, but he can still be dialoguing or interacting with you.
Definitely. I was so impressed when it arrived and realized that it doesn't have to go in the ears because a lot of my children, they do have sensory issues, and some of my children will love wearing headphones and earphones. They love all that. But some of my other children, they can't cope with, something blocking their ears, something in their ears. So having it behind the ears, it was so much better. All my children were happy to put them on. They were happy to keep them on. And I think that is because it's not covering the ears as well.
Yeah. Also, if ever, I can't remember if I mentioned that before, but if they're hypersensitive, there's a volume button. So you can also adjust the volume to make sure that, they can get used to it and it's not too loud at first, and maybe wear it 5 minutes and 10 minutes the next day. I mean, there are different tricks to make the child accept it if ever it's an issue for very sensitive children.
Definitely. And I know your website is a wealth of knowledge and information about this as well for people to access if they maybe are struggling with something.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of information on the website. And again, then we have offices and customer support teams in Hong Kong, the US, and Europe. So we should be able to cover pretty much any time zone and help over the phone if necessary.
Definitely. And I found you all so very helpful, when we were setting this up and how to use Forbrain and ways that it can be used. And even just the leaflet in the welcome pack with all those exercises, ways to use it, those things are really helpful for people who are interested in trying Forbrain.
Yeah, that's great.
Brilliant. So is there anything else that you would like to mention or talk about Forbrain?
So Noah, I don't have anything to add about Forbrain itself, but for anyone who's interested, please, Nikki already knows a lot about the product, but as I mentioned, we also have a support team who'd be happy to help and answer any of your questions. For parents who are interested, we also have another product called Soundstory. It's a music and movement program. It uses the same technologies, which are bone conduction and again, a dynamic filter, but it's different in the sense that it's 40-day program, 30 minutes per day, 25 minutes of music listening, and then 5 minutes of body movement exercises to be paired with the music listening. And it helps improve motor and cognitive skills. So it's really to help people with balance, coordination, but also attention. And it's been really designed to help children with ADD, ADHD, who are on the autism spectrum or who have any kind of motor issues.
That sounds really interesting. I know my audience would definitely be interested, in maybe checking that out. I know I've seen it quite a lot on your Instagram lately with people sort of sharing photos of that as well. So is that something that you would recommend to go alongside Forbrain, or can they be used totally separately?
They're completely complementary. So, you can use each one standalone or you can work with both. They're not working on the same aspects. For example, you're not at all practicing on your speech when you're using Soundstory, and you're not really working on your motor skills when using Forbrain. So they really work well together.
That sounds really interesting. I know a lot of my audience would definitely be interested in maybe checking both of those things out because, as you say, they cover a lot of different skills with our children as well.
Yeah, exactly. So there are two different websites, but I'm sure, Nikki, you'll be able to list everything.
Of course, I will get those links from you. I'll put them in the show notes so that everyone can head on over to the show notes. They can link through, check them out for themselves. And I definitely recommend, heading over to your social media pages, especially Facebook, Instagram, and being able to see them in action as well, just to see how people are using them all around the world and the benefits that they're getting from both of these things as well.
Yeah. We also have a blog.forbrain.com. Of course, we're not sharing so much content on the products itself, but we're getting different kinds of articles and advice from specialists from all over the world. So I would definitely recommend the blog too for anyone just looking for general content mostly on special needs that Forbrain is helping with.
That is brilliant, and something that I know a lot of us would be interested, myself included, because we're always sort of looking to learn and expand our knowledge in the field. And that blog, so much research goes into everything that you guys do. I know that blog is just going to be full of helpful information as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming on today, Caroline, and sharing all about Forbrain, and for sending me, the amazing headset to try out as well. It's been a fantastic experience, and I can't wait to keep using it as well.
Cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode on my Teaching Autism and Special Education Community podcast. It was so wonderful to speak to Caroline from Forbrain today and find out all about the different products that they offer and how beneficial they can be for our students as well. I have been trying out Forbrain for a short while, and I have fallen in love with this headset, and so have my students. So I decided to write up a full review on my blog, which you can find at teachingautism.co.uk, or click the link in the show notes to go straight there. And there's also a link where you can purchase Forbrain, and my link gives you 10% off. So you will save 10% if you decide to invest in Forbrain through clicking that link on my website. Now, if you're feeling a little bit skeptical, that's okay. I recommend heading over to their website, which you can also find in the show notes, and read all about this fantastic device. Because usually if people say something sounds too good to be true, they're usually right. But Forbrain, although it sounds too good to be true, it's definitely not. The headset is testament to the amount of research and experience that this company have put into it. And I know that you will love this headset if you decide to invest in it. And it could be that you use it at home with your homeschooling children. It could be you're a teacher or a speech and language therapist. You may even be a principal who's listening in on this and thinking, that is something that my staff would love to trial out with some of my students. So head to the show notes, click on my link, head on over to the blog, read all about it and how I found personally using Forbrain as well as using it with my students. Click that link and save yourself 10%. Forbrain can be used worldwide, so there is no restrictions of where to purchase from. So let me know if you decide to invest in Forbrain. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email. And of course, I will include the link there to Forbrain's website where you can find out more information there. Thank you for tuning in. And once again, if you do have a spare few moments, I would love if you were able to head on over to iTunes and review this podcast. Reviewing this podcast means more people will be able to find it in the future. And I would really appreciate those few moments that it took you. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you soon.